Everyone, I'm Tia from Sun Group, and today I would like to talk about you some concept of floating solar. So the topic today is about FPV into the practice, how to make the floating PV reliable. The agenda today will be consisted of 4 parts. One is about the short company introduction, then follow up why floating solar, then key factors to make the floating solar reliable. Then I will close with some learning of the floating projects. So when we talk about Sungrow actually is a group company which has been established in 1997, and during the 24 years experiments of the development, we have achieved some milestones. For example, we have just got the IPO in 2011, and for now we have joined the RE100 plan to make the full clean energy at 2028. So far, we also the top 100 top global renewable company with 100% bankable of the inverter. So when we're looking at the business divisions, besides the inverter, which Sungrow is a main core business, we also run other divisions, for example, the ESS storage, the IPP, renewables, EPC, wind converter, floating system, as what I come from, and smart O&M, hydro system, automotive driving system, as well as for the EV charger. So when we're talking about the Sungrow FPV, which is floating, we are a total subsidiary from Sungrow Group, and we have established at the end of 2016. So this year is our 5th anniversary. There's some our advantage here. So during the 5 years experiments, we have just applied over 1.4 gigawatts of the floating solar PV with over 115 projects. So far, we are positively developing our global supply chain especially in some Europe countries, because due to the COVID, the freight cost becomes extremely high. And also in China mainland, we also own our own factory. As I don't know whether you have noticed the video just play around. The factory in China, we own over 30 big blow machines with an annual production capacity of over 1 gigawatt. And also we have our own laboratory in the factory as well. So besides that, we also tailor solution for our clients, no matter from inland to offshore, to calm water area or to extremely cold area. We also tailor this kinds of one-stop solution. And in terms of the R&D ability, we have achieved over 100 patents worldwide, and we have authorized by TÜV for over 15 tests to satisfy the 25 years design lifetime of the floating system. Also, recently we are proceeding with standardization of the floating solar with CPIA. CPIA is a very famous and reputed association in China. And also, in 2 months ago, we have our anchoring methodology has just been verified by DNV to prove the reliability of the anchoring methodology. So overall, what we can provide it to our client is not the product or the solution itself, but also the strong bankability regarding on the floating solar investment and development. So besides the market share we achieved in China's domestic market, actually we have developing very fast in the overseas market, especially in the last year. So here are some breakthroughs that you can see from the slide. We have achieved our project in Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam. Most of them are based in Southeast Asia countries with abundant water resources, and all the project we have supplied is just the milestone and the first largest project in this Southeast Asia country. So when we go further, we expanded our business to Israel. Last year, we have supplied over 70 megawatt of the floating solar to Israel. And fortunately, we also set up our first European floating solar project. It was in France, and the capacity is 5 megawatts. So far, it has not been sailed yet, but everything is under the well constructed. So why we talking about the floating solar is some forecasted that floating solar will be the third pillar in the solar industry. I think the main reason is because there is abundant water resources globally to develop the floating solar. So from the IHS forecasted that the total installed capacity of the global floating PV market will reach 11.7 gigawatt till 2025. So basically, it's mainly in the Southeast Asia. But when we look into the Europe, we also find some like huge potential, especially in Spain and Portugal. In recent Spain, government just published its plan to invest with the 6.1 million euros into the development of floating solar. And Portugal, I think maybe some of you has just know that in recent auction of the Portugal has published around 263 megawatt of the floating solar. So actually the potential is there. So I think it's a good opportunity to catch it and develop it. Definitely, there are some like advantages of the floating solar. First of all, it's environmental friendly. Some of the concern may be to worry about whether the floating solar will harm the water body, but actually it will not. So I will talk about later because actually we have a good practice in Singapore. It was built in a totally drinking water reservoir, and we has also did some like sampling test to test the water body before the FPV and after the FPV. Actually, the test results show there's no harmful. And also in terms of the technical economic respect, we think that the construction actually for the floating solar is very, very easy and convenient, which is different from ground mounted or the rooftop. And also the water cooling effect is really better than the rooftop or the ground mounted. And meanwhile, it can help to save water evaporation anyway. For the social effect, because actually the application of the floating solar is very diversified, it can be applied on the lake or the coal mining area, which is we create some renewables from the unused or the traditional energy. And also we support the reservoir dam, all these kinds of applications. We have some experience and I will share later in my presentation today. So not only about the floating solar, there's many concerns about the floating solar. Will it be durable or will it be reliable? So here I would like to, from our experience, there are some key factors we think that will influence the floating solar. First of all, it's the reliability of the products, because actually speaking, floating solar is a really new thing in the solar industry. So actually, from the international standard, there is no regular standardization to require how the development of the floating solar. But actually, we are positively working on that. We have just integrated with many professional institutions, with some top university test authorizations to regulation this kind of standard to make it floating more reliable and more durable to achieve its 25 years design lifetime. So here's just some standardization we have lead in the China domestic market. But so far, we are positively waiting to be engaged from an international standard to make it happen for the floating standard internationally. Besides the floating product itself, the anchoring system must be another key factor to influence the reliability of the floating solar. So based on our technology, we can help the client to design the anchoring methodology, as well as to give some like calculation analysis, the load simulations, and also we have our own methodology and our CFD simulations. So this picture here just shows some coupling analysis to see how the floating area will be moved under the comprehensive load together. And also, recently, we have been working with DNV, and our anchoring methodology has just been verified by DNV. No matter for DNV in China's domestic market, we also just with CPIA again to regulate and standardize the anchoring system in China's market, and hope everything can be finalized till the February the next year. Besides the product and anchoring system, actually, we never stop our steps to developing ourselves. We stand in front of the market and find some challenge we need to conquer. So first of all, it's about the ice or the cold conditions, because as we know, in most of the Northern Europe countries, the weather is very cold, and there are some like freezing condition may happen. So in terms to conquer this situation, we did a lot of experiments. No matter on the ice pole experiment, actually we have a piloting project in China northern area to test whether the temperature resistance of the floating body and itself can resist the low weather. So the test result here is that our system can resist minus 14 degrees. So actually it can satisfy most of the extremely cold weather. And the middle picture is about the morning ropes, because sometimes, as we know, the water type can be virus. For example, the salty water or the acid water. So actually we can just combine this complicated situation and just conducted some like the breaking force analysis to give the recommendation of the morning rope solution. And the right one here is just about the wave, because I know some like institutions, they research the possibility of the offshore floating solar. But when we're talking about offshore, the wave is an obstacle we must conquer with. So if we don't have this kinds of wave breaker, the maximum wave height normally the floating system can bear is around 1 meter. But if we apply this kind of wave breaker, then the wave can be eliminated. Then the maximum wave we can achieve is around 5 meters. So actually it's a huge step, but so far we are trying to optimizing this kinds of wave breaker to make it more economic. In conclusion, is there are some like bank we has cooperated with. So besides like some famous top bank like Construction Bank or the Everbright Bank in China, we also cooperate with international bank like DBS, HSBC, or the Citibank. So actually, this can all support the financial things regarding on the developing floating solar. So the last cabinet here, I would like to share some like our experience in Southeast Asia. The first one is Singapore 16 megawatt floating PV. Actually, the Singapore government has started to research the floating solar at 2016. So during this year, the government has built the piloting project called One of Its Kind. And because of the piloting project, they found that there's definitely some like advantage for floating solar, for example, especially for the higher power generation because of the better cooling effect. So after the results, the government decided to publish this big one, the 60 megawatt at the Tangga Reservoir. So actually, the Tangga Reservoir is a totally drinking reservoir. As we all know, Singapore is a not very big country, and actually the resources for the government or for the people there is very valuable. So actually, we emphasize it a lot to help the tender process to improve all of our materials are food grade and no harmful to the water body. We have lots of like test results like ROS test or the BS6920. It's British standard to make the product material food grade. And this project has been COD at the early of this year. So it's just some like marketing promotion page. It's a LinkedIn from Lee Heng Long. He is like president of Singapore. So after the COD, he has just visited the Tangga Reservoir floating project, and he found that it's really a good project that maybe has a huge potential for Singapore. So actually, he just pays on his LinkedIn for help us or regarding on the promotion. And meanwhile, the floating project in Tangga Reservoir has been compared by the owner as a crown of jewelry. So the second project was in Thailand. It's also the Thailand biggest floating project, and it's a government project by IGAT. The total capacity is 58.5 megawatts, and it was built on a dam. The high wind speed there is 42 meters per second, and the water level elevation here is 7 meters. So actually, we designed the 4 megawatt single floating area with the central inverter. Actually, for this project, we have totally contributed a lot of effort from the one-stop solution. For example, we not only provided the floating body itself, but as well as for the FPV system design, like the block arrangement, panel tilt selection, stability analysis, and OM buoyancy analysis. After that, we designed the anchoring system, including the load calculation, anchoring type chosen, and the doublability of water level depths and the water level variation. So here is a picture that just we sending some our people there to help the clients to sample and install all the capacity of the floating solar. This project is also being COD early this year. And because the specialty of this application scenarios, it was built on a hydro dam. So actually, the floating solar can generate electricity during the day, but during the night, we can generate the electricity by the hydro. So actually, it can help to saving more money and lower capex anyway. Also, the IGAT government has just developed the intelligent system to measure all this of power generation. And this one is also the Malaysia, the biggest one. It's 13 megawatt. The specialty of this because it's exit water. The pH index for this water type is only 3. So actually, for this project, we just recommended especially some like morning room solution. So for the morning room solution, we cannot use steel or something. But for this project, we recommended the polymer material. And this one is worth to say. It's also the Taiwan biggest floating solar. The total capacity of the project is 181 megawatts. It was built a near shore area with a tidy area. So the problem here, first one is about the seawater. Because the salty water, we need to provide it all material can satisfy the anti-corrosion performance, as well as to achieve the 25 years design lifetime. And then the second thing is about the wind speed and the application of the tidy. So actually, the wind speed is 48 meters per second, and the tidy area means the floating area will change its depth every day, and every day it will be dried on the bank. So actually, we did some analysis to add some weights over around the area in terms of conquer the dry issue, as well as we use a lot of concrete block on the bank to get the floating area to resist these kinds of 48 meters per second of the wind. So actually, speaking overall, just I want to know that floating solar, as we really see a big potential, and actually Sungrow has a lot of experience, which is a trustworthy partner to cooperate with. And if you have any question, just no doubt to inquire me, and I'm happy for the answering. Thank you.